Why does the right have such an issue with Islam? I'm sure it wasn't always like that, because I'm sure I remember a time when it wasn't Muslims. At one time it was the trade unions, or it was, I don't know, the unemployment benefit scrounger, then single mothers, and then back to unemployed benefit scroungers, and of course, always people of colour, and of course, Jews. Those ones always seem popular with some on the right. But then it was Muslims, or at least some Muslims. But then they kind of realised that they were onto something, and then it became not just all Muslims, but Islam itself, the entire religion framed as a threat. Politicians then started talking about Islam not fitting Western values. Headlines started warning of parallel societies and replacement theories. Online, you'd hear people say things like,
anti-Semitism is racism.
Is racism.
Islamophobia is not racism.
I'll come back to that later, but it leads to some questions that need to be asked, like, why Islam? Why this group? And of course, why now? Because this doesn't feel random, it feels very contrived, and we have to be aware of this. This is Western politics at the moment, but it follows a very old playbook, so let's open that book. So, there are some groups in society that are harder to publicly attack, at least politically. Things like open anti-Semitism, well, that could mean political career over. Open racism towards black and brown communities, at least in mainstream politics, that's still on the fringes of what's acceptable, even for people like Donald Trump and Sarah Palin, who are really pushing that envelope. But open hostility towards Muslims, well, that's been normalised. You can say things like Islam is incompatible with Western values, or Muslims don't integrate, or Islam is a threat to our way of life, and you can still get invited onto TV panel shows like Question Time on Nabeeb. Lord knows why I pay my TV license, but this rhetorical trick works because Islam is framed not as people, but as an idea. So politicians get to say, I'm not attacking Muslims, I'm criticising Islam, but in practice that criticism lands on people, and the result is honest innocent women in hijabs get harassed, mosques get vandalised, and Muslim kids get bullied at school. A carryover that then targets all. After 9/11, hate crimes against Muslims in the US spiked by over 1600%, and here in the UK, anti-Muslim hate crimes surged after terror attacks like the 2017 Manchester bombing. So this isn't an abstract debate about theology. This is about who gets treated as suspicious in public life. Every era of political anxiety produces a scapegoat. When wages stagnate, housing becomes unaffordable, public services crumble, and people feel like they're losing control of their lives because of things beyond their control. I mean, they go to work, they do what they have to do, and things are still wrong. They're no better off, and then they're told that somebody has to be to blame. Failure of governments, corporations, and economic systems can be complicated and hard to explain. But blaming a group of people, well, that's simple. It connects emotionally and it's powerful, and it also suits those that would take advantage. After the 2008 financial crash, inequality exploded across the West. But instead of endless debates about the deregulation of the financial system, what effects austerity might cause on society, and holding the financial elites accountable for what they had done, political anger got redirected. It got directed towards migrants, towards refugees, towards Muslims. It's emotionally satisfying to believe your life is harder because of them. It turns complex economic failures into a human enemy that you can easily point at, the people that may actually have less than yourself. Another reason Islam gets targeted is that it fits neatly into a dramatic story politicians love to tell. The story says that the West is a civilization, Islam is another civilization, and the two cannot coexist. The idea was popularized by political scientist Samuel Huntington in the 1990s with the phrase, the clash of civilizations. It sounds simple and it's cinematic, and it's been used to turn politics into a war story. Once you accept that framing, everything changes. Muslims stop being citizens like yourself. They become a foreign presence, like, an invasion perhaps. Integration becomes appeasement on your side, civil liberties become weakness. And this is how a government would justify surveillance laws, travel bans, loyalty tests, religious profiling, not as policy choices, but a civilizational self-defense. So, let's deal with a popular trope that's wheeled out a lot. Muslims are terrorists. And yes, you have Islamist extremism, people have been murdered in terror attacks, and that terrorism has unfortunately been politically useful to some. But what isn't talked about by some is the geopolitical aspect that exists in relation to this terrorism. The removal of this component allows the issue to be simplified and removes all nuance, but also allows this topic to be weaponized against all those who follow the Islamic faith, totally disregarding the variations in Islamic theology based on things like sect and nationality, in a similar way in which a different some didn't lump the troubles in Ireland as just Catholic extremism. The vast majority of terror attacks in the West are carried out by non-Muslims, and most victims of Islamist terrorism globally are, of course, Muslims themselves. And Muslims are, of course, far more likely to condemn extremism than support it like anybody else. And yet the framing is always the same. When a Muslim commits violence, the messaging is, this tells us something about Islam. But when a white extremist commits violence, the messaging is different. It's lone wolf, or they have mental health issues and their behaviour has nothing to do with ideology. This double standard turns every attack into a cultural trial of millions of people who had nothing to do with it. Fear becomes generalised and suspicion becomes permanent. Muslims are also an easy target because some expressions of faith are visible. Things like mosques, hijabs, beards, Arabic names and halal food in supermarkets makes difference obvious and visible. Visibility makes difference feel bigger than it actually is, but in reality, Muslims are a small minority in most Western countries. Take Britain as an example. Approximately 3.9 million people declared their faith as Islam at the 2021 census. These are citizens going about their everyday lives dealing with the consequences of poor fiscal policy, just like everybody else. They're not immune to these struggles, whether they're visible or not, but visibility lets some politicians create the illusion of cultural takeover. Somehow they're getting something that others can't. They're immune to the poor choices of government, and those same governments are somehow benefiting them more than other citizens. You don't need demographic reality when you have perceptual warfare. Moving on. You know what people love to say? They love to say things like, it's not racism, Islam is a religion and not a race. But here's the thing. Sikhs get attacked because they're mistaken for Muslims. Arab Christians get targeted because they look Muslim. I mean, hell, any brown or black person falls into that category, and yet a white convert to Islam is treated differently than a brown or black Muslim born into it. That means this isn't just about belief systems. And of course, this.
Anti-Semitism is racism.
Is racism.
Islamophobia is not racism.
Islamophobia functions as racial politics with plausible deniability. It lets people blow that dog whistle while pretending it's just cultural concern. The right didn't discover a unique problem with Islam. It discovered a useful enemy, a group that could be blamed for decline, framed as incompatible, associated with fear and targeted without immediate political cost. This isn't about security of a nation, it's about power and wealth, and who's getting more powerful and who's getting wealthier. It's not about ignoring the genuine concerns that people have, but it's about acknowledging that fear is easier to sell than solutions, and what's being sold to us is fear and not solutions. It's worth noting that enemies are easier to campaign against than broken systems and the ideas on how to fix them. The problem isn't just why do they target Islam, it's who are those that benefit from fear and division and why are they still getting away with it? History already tells us what happens when we demonize an entire group, and we know that's wrong, so why are we still doing it? Othering people has never fixed the social problems that demagogues use to scare and enrage people. It's always led to ruination, so maybe the problem isn't with the other, maybe the problem is with them. So that's it, that's the end of the video. Actually no, it's not the end of the video, there was something actually I wanted to say. Boudica, Queen of the Iceni, would have been a pagan, Celtic pagan. She wouldn't have been Christian. So paganism predates Christianity and Islam in England in particular. So why Christianity instead of paganism? And finally, that Britain is a secular country. I think the realisation not to mix religion and politics is probably a good idea and a great way to run a democracy. And now, with that, I want to say this is the end of the video. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. As always, we don't have to agree. We're not here to all be the same. And with that, thank you very much. One love.